Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about two very profound, mystical psilocybin mushroom experiences that I had many years ago. These experiences were extremely profound and actually guided my life towards writing my first book, which in turn completely changed my life path as an attorney. I am Psychedelic Attorney Greg Lake. Welcome to the EntheoSK YouTube channel. And again, so these experiences for me were during a transitory transition period in my life. As many may know, I struggled with substance and alcohol abuse for a very long time. I was in and out of the streets for about 30 years. And so during this period of time was actually me transitioning out of a 3-year inpatient rehab facility, basically being institutionalized, getting back into the real world. Okay. And so a lot of this story is me trying to wrestle with that, right? By using these substances. And let me make this clear. This video is not promoting the use of these substances. Please always follow the law. Look, I know a lot of people have had these experiences and or are curious about these experiences. And so this is going to be a raw, real life recollection story of two specific ones in my life path that were incredibly meaningful and powerful for me. And I would not be lying to tell you that I probably would not be here on this camera today speaking to you about this if it were not for these experiences. I also want to make clear that these experiences occurred before I knew anything about this concept called integration, which is the process of basically taking these experiences and working it out either by yourself or with others in order to make it the most beneficial. I was more or less, you could say, integrating these things by the seat of my pants the best that I could. As we'll learn in a bit, at that time I was otherwise clean and working out and eating right, which I think really contributed to my ability to really make good sense of these experiences. But obviously now I know that there are much better ways that people go about making meaning of these experiences, and that's called integration. And I'll also say too that obviously these experiences occurred before at least now, I might have thought I knew something about spirituality and religion back then. I might have thought. And, in the sense that I had previously worked with psychedelics, and I'll talk about that in a minute, I absolutely did know something, and I grew up Christian, stuff like that. So I had an idea about spirituality and religion, but I really didn't know much, right? And working with these psychedelics and entheogens has really taught me the most about religion and spirituality, which will come in later videos. I'll probably touch a little bit, obviously, on that today because these experiences are so profound that, they absolutely influenced my theology, my ontology, my cosmology, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And again, we'll get into that in later videos. This is really just going to be talking about these two experiences, which were spaced approximately, I apologize, I didn't have the exact timeline, but approximately 4 to 5 months apart. Okay. So let me set the scene for you real quick. Again, Psychedelic Attorney Greg Lake here. I have a lot of experience in this, both personal and in my professional life. And so, again, this is this channel sharing it with y'all. So, again, I had, at the time of these experiences, okay, let me back up. In 2010, during my second year of law school, okay, my mother passed away from a sudden heart attack. It was absolutely devastating to me, okay. I was already in pretty good addiction at the time, but I was still being very successful, highly functioning addict. I had it together pretty good. I mean, I was doing good otherwise, right? When my mother died, it just layered on a whole other addiction, to name opiates, which I was able to successfully finish law school and stuff, right? But once my mother died, after I finished law school, I moved back to my hometown in Texas. There I was just going deeper and deeper into addiction and looking for something to do. Really at the time, just looking for something other to do than the other drugs. But, when you are with opiates, that's something that you have to do every day. It's terrible. Please don't get into it, please. And if you are, please get help. But anyways, in that context, my best friend and I learned to propagate our own sacred mushrooms. And would take them periodically out in nature at the lake. And during these experiences, even though I was still taking other substances, I started to get notions of very profound insights into my trauma related to my mother. Now, again, at that time, I knew nothing about integration. What should I do with this or that? I knew that during the time I was under the influence of the Sager mushrooms, I was getting like really good insights into, making meaning behind my mother's death, like good meaning. Helpful, transmuting the trauma, even though I didn't know that's kind of what it was then, but I just knew there was something very profound there. Okay. So I just want to set that stage as kind of a backdrop. Okay. Anyways, many years later, I ended up, in jail on misdemeanor several times, on probation, could never complete it. Check out our episode about psychedelics probation. And ended up having to commit, mostly for my law license, but it also took care of my probation, to a 3-year inpatient rehabilitation facility. It was called Synchronicity. It was a therapeutic community. It is a very tough program, something that even today I'm more proud of completing than even my law license, all the law licensures I have and all that, to be quite honest with you, okay? Anyway, so I finished that program and I'm sober, I'm feeling spiritually strong. Towards the end of the program, I was able to, I got my law license back. But I was actually working at a bakery at the time, to be quite honest with you, as a dishwasher, and quite happy at that point. But anyways, I graduated from the program. I think it was about December. And so come January, I had to move out, and I ended up securing a very good legal position. And by the way, this was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I got a really good job at a law firm, which was great. It was awesome, but I didn't have a lot of money moving out. And so I had to move into an apartment, what we called the Bricks in the hood, the ghetto, near LSU. Okay. And now let me say this, the apartment was fine. Nothing ever necessarily happened there, like in my apartment or like, inside the apartment complex, but outside the apartment complex, it's complete mayhem. Now, being institutionalized, and at one time, y'all, I was even homeless on the streets for 2 years, right? So like, being in the ghetto around, that doesn't scare me, doesn't bother me. It felt natural to me otherwise, but, right, as an opiate addict, every time I would go to the gas station or to the store or really just talk to anybody around there, it was like, hey, bro, hey, we got that dog food. Hey, we got that kibbles and bits. You heard? So yeah, they're heroin, right? And, that scared me. That is what scared me. That is what scared me almost half to death. And so I'm so grateful that at that time I was working out, I was eating healthy, I had a very clear mind, I was going to recovery meetings. And so it became apparent to me very quickly, okay, that I needed to do something still beyond what I was doing, or else I was going to get swallowed up in that again. It became real clear to me, obviously the ultimate hope was to be able to move out of there. But it wasn't something that was just going to happen overnight. Okay. And so, I can't remember when this happened. It might've been at work or something, but I reached this moment of clarity where let me take that back. We were not allowed to have communication devices, not much access to outside media, anything like that, while in that facility for 3 years. So I was not aware. There was actually some pretty significant psilocybin research that occurred in 2016, the year that I would have been going in. And so later on, once I got out, really when I got my phone, started Facebook, these other platforms, I ended up learning about it, right? And so a mixture of my prior experiences with psilocybin, with reading the research, which by the way, when I read the research, which says that people have primary religious mystical experiences at a very high rate, I immediately connected with that. And I realized those experiences I was having at the lake, those were like deeply spiritual, religious, and meaningful. And I just knew it instantly. I was like, okay, that's what it was. That profundity, that was spirit speaking to me is what I felt. So a mix of that and the research led me to conclude that perhaps these could help guide me or keep me internally, spiritually safe in a time where there were a lot of external spiritual threats coming at me. Okay. So obviously I was an experienced propagator. I've never ever sold any of these things, always for personal consumption. And so I did my thing, right? It took about a month and a half. And when you put your love and energy into something like that, it certainly will love you back. Okay. And I hope y'all understand what I'm saying there, but you put your love and energy to something like that, it's going to give you love and energy back. And that's just speaking from a lot of experience in this. Okay. And they did. And so once they came, I prepared them appropriately, all that good stuff. Um, I think it was like every Friday night for maybe a month. Because those were the hardest times, right? On a Friday, you got the whole weekend. I would go to work, go to the gym. Might have had a recovery meeting on Friday, maybe not. But then I would come home. But look, you have all the college kids, all the people in the bricks. They're all out there partying, blah blah blah. You got the dog food, all that, right? So those were the scariest times for me. So what I decided to do is like, okay, well, I'm just going to do spiritual journey work during those times to help me get through it. And so this leads us to the first experience, okay? The first experience. I think it was the third one, if I remember correctly, the third Friday. I did not take a huge dose, and that's the thing. It's crazy. When you put your love and energy into something, it's also very efficient for you, okay? And usually these sessions, just like this third one, would be me consuming my dose, saying a prayer, and then I would lay on the bed and put on music on the headphones, usually Thievery Corporation. If you haven't checked them out, you probably should. But it's usually Thievery Corporation or a mix on Spotify of Thievery Corporation and related artists, okay? But anyways, I would just sit there and, I would cry, deep emotional tears, such cathartic release. It felt so good on my bed while all this madness is going on all around me. And but this third experience, man, I'm sitting there and I'm like feeling the music. It's good. And all of a sudden it just goes boom. And my phone didn't die. I didn't touch my phone. It just died. So I sat up off the bed and looked and was like looking at my phone and could not figure out why it stopped. And just so mind you, I'm in a really small 1-bedroom apartment. So how the lights off, some light came in through the 2 windows front and back of the apartment, but pretty much pitch black. But all of a sudden, I was overcome with this sense of, hey, you need to go to your living room. Okay, just go step out there in the living room. I'd already taken the headphones off, so I was like, oh, I don't know. Okay, so I went out there, slowly walked out there. It felt kind of creepy, to be quite honest with you, at first, because it was like a voice was calling me. And, man. So when I got out there, I noticed a big kind of dark entity with red eyes, but like off to the side. And when I went to look at it, it telepathically said, don't do that. If you look at me, you're not going to be able to perceive me. So I was like, okay, yeah. So I looked over here, and that's when the entity told me, you need to write a book about the mushrooms. And as I'm processing what's being said, it just goes away. It disappears. But the message was very, very clear. Okay, I can't, and I guess I can't, it's hard to explain beyond that, but like the message was super clear what was said. Okay, like obviously we're going to unravel some deeper layers of meaning along the way here, but like, at least at a superficial level, that was what was said. And it my brain registered it. Like this entity just said this to me. And to the best that I remember, I really didn't put too much thought back into it that night. I think I went back to my bed, got my phone and my headphones working again, and finished the journey. But over the next several weeks, obviously it was, and I had a couple more journeys. It really started to set into me. It's like my brain automatically went to, okay, well, if I need to write a book about mushrooms, like what about the mushrooms, right? What about the mushrooms? I know a lot about them, right? I know a ton about them, all these different areas. Do I need to put it all in one book? Do I just need to talk about the research? Do I talk about propagation, history of use? What is it? So that was what was really going through my mind, but I really didn't make an immediate direction into actually doing it, because at the time I thought, well, I'm gonna have to get a book publisher. Like, where am I gonna find these people? Like, I'm an attorney. Do I really want to step out in this direction? So there's a lot of other things going on at that time. However, and this kind of gave credence to the experience. And pardon my language, I shit you not. The next day I get up and I'm surfing YouTube, and like the first video on my feed is a guy talking about self-publishing books on KDP, on Amazon Direct Publishing, Kindle Direct Publishing. And so I started watching those videos. I was like, okay, well, I need to publish a book. Maybe this will have some. So, same thing. I sat there just watching videos night after night, taking notes. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. But still, at that time, still kind of mixed up on the subject matter. What exactly, do I want to write about? I felt for sure about the research, but I was thinking about these other aspects too. But, still no like real super concrete plans. And to be quite honest, like I still had a little bit of doubt about whether or how real this entity encounter was. And again, just because I said the entity was big and dark and red eyes, it didn't have an evil feel to it. Maybe a little spooky when I kind of walked in my living room right there, but like it didn't have an evil feel to it. It felt like this was good and right in a sense. It's crazy. It's weird, you know? Um, but anyways, that still played on me a little bit too. Okay, to be quite honest. So I had all these things going. Again, you know, usually if you have proper integration and working with people who are experienced, like that shouldn't be that big of an issue. But you know, I was by myself, and you know, had to do it. You know, I had to do it. And what ended up happening is about 4 or 5 months later, a learned friend of mine met in law school invited me to his ranch outside of Houston, Texas. And so I drove over there like the 5 or 6 hours. And just to be full and fair disclosure, you know, this ranch is a place where we had previously communed with mushrooms before, right? So and that was the purpose of the trip, to come over there, hang out, see my friend, and commune with mushrooms. And so, you know, I took my last bit with me, which was, I think, approximately 1 ounce at the time, to commune with him over there. Big fellowship there. It's a huge ranch, 3,500 acres. It has a ranch house, a couple ranch houses at the front, and there's one that he stays at. And so, you know, we hopped up there. And yeah, so we went into consuming the mushrooms. As a matter of fact, we just split the whole house. And again, I'm not promoting or encouraging any kind of illicit substance use or you know, look, if it's your religious spiritual practice, that's you. But I'm definitely not, and definitely not taking any amounts that I'm talking about here. And this was kind of a freak thing. I don't know why we did that. We really didn't plan to. We just kind of did it in the moment. But, you know, once we did, we hopped in the ranch truck, okay? And we go in between, you know, out probably 20 minutes into the middle of the property, right? Where there's no light pollution, just nature sounds and stars, right? And I'll never forget, as soon as we pulled up, it was, you know, the mushrooms were speaking to us pretty good. And we got out of the truck. We didn't even shut the door. We had no music going. We both laid in this pasture between two ponds and basically just laid there for about 3 hours listening to the locust and the frog symphony going on. And then the moon was projecting down onto the earth fractal energy so intense that I could not see my hand this far in front of my face. Okay. So, and again, so nothing up to about the 3.5 hour, 4 hour point was relating back to the experience. There was no entities there or anything, but it was still a very profound and meaningful experience, right? Totally connected with nature, connected with the heavens. You could feel the energetic flow between the two. It was an absolute divine experience. However, here's where we go. Y'all ready? We get up, and my buddy's like, hey, you know, you want to go back to the ranch house and go lay down or go sit on the front porch and you know, have a smoke, talk, whatever. It's like, yeah, it sounds good to me. So we go to the truck, and as we're getting in, he stops, and he looks me dead in the eye, and he said, Greg, you need to write a book about the mushrooms. He's like, you know a lot about them. You know, people would love it if you wrote this. You should write the book. But look, when he told me this, and I recently spoke with him about this, by the way. This is really why impetus for this video. I spoke with him, and this video was in the ether of ideas. And when I spoke to him, he brought it up. Then I knew, you know. So here we are. Anyways, when he said this to me, I had what I know now to be a Kundalini experience where my spinal fluids were just, I mean, not on fire, but in a good way. And almost dropped to the ground because, let me tell you, I knew that entity was speaking through my friend. As soon as he said the words to me, I knew that's what it was. And he tells me now that he felt something too when he said that. He said it just came out of nowhere when I said that. For real. He's like, I didn't like think about it before or nothing. It just came out. And that hit me. That one got me. I said, whoa. But again, you know, for the rest of that night, I mean, I had the experience and I just kind of put it away, got through the night, woke up the next day. I think we had lunch and then I headed back. So on the way back is really when I started integrating that. And I mean, as you could imagine, it was just full confirmation. It was full confirmation for me that these experiences were very real and guiding me in some direction that, just in my opinion, I thought God wanted me to go. And still do, right? I still believe that. And so on the way home, it became clear to me that I was to just write about the research, because the important part of the research was that these things are safe. They generally safe, right? If used in correct and with respect and intention, um, and can effectuate primary religious mystical experiences at a very high rate, which have been proven time and time and time and time and time and time again, thousands of years, to be very healing, to be very divine, and to really set people straight if they're doing it correctly, right? And so I felt publishing this information with pointing that out to people, stuff like that, would be a good idea. And felt right to me. That felt like, like doing the Lord's work, to be quite honest with you at the time. Still does in a way, for sure. So when I got back, and this was just shortly before COVID broke out, I started gathering the research, like printing them out, highlighting them, putting them together in my outline, stuff like that. And then it took me about 16 days once that started happening to actually get the book done, get the cover done, and upload it up to KDP. In the book is called Psychedelics and Mental Health Series, Psilocybin. It's by me, George Greg Lake Esquire. If anybody here wants that book, please give the channel subscribe and send me a email to entheogenic@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to send you the PDF of any of my books. I'm not going to talk about my other two books in this video, but if you want them, just the PDFs at least. If you want a hard copy, obviously you can get one off Amazon, but I'll be glad to give you a PDF if that's what you want. So anyways, I published the book. And, it was very fulfilling, right? It was very fulfilling. I didn't have and still never have had any kind of like monetary interest in it. Like I want to make a bunch of money. I just want to get the good word out. So, but in that process, right, I started marketing my book on Facebook. So so let's stop right there for just one second. So this entity and these experiences led me to publish this book. One thing I forgot to tell you is that on the car ride home from Houston that day, it also came into my awareness that once I published this book, my higher path would be revealed. Okay. And so obviously going up to that time, I thought, okay, well, I'm supposed to be also an author, attorney and author. Yeah, I can do that. I'll write about psychedelics. I'll litigate maritime law. We'll be good. But in the course of marketing the book and just generally getting the word out, and meeting community on Facebook, within like 1 week, I got an email, or actually a Facebook message first, from a former Christian pastor in South Louisiana, south from Baton Rouge, who told me that he had formed a psychedelic church, and that he saw as a lawyer that I wrote a book about psychedelics. He asked me if I knew anything about helping psychedelic churches. He needed help. Well, he wanted me to join, which I did. But he also wanted me to help draft their internal documents, their beliefs and stuff like that, putting it into correct prose, all that good stuff, which I did. And we'll talk about that on later videos. But what he did do, because I told him, I said, I don't really know too much about religious freedom law or this exemption for use psychedelics, whatever. So he sent me the Uneodo Vegetal case, the Gonzalez case from Supreme Court. It started in 2002, ended in 2006, 2001, 2006. And then the Santo Daime opinion, which was out of the district court. Both those are ayahuasca churches, by the way, that got formal recognition from the courts for their right to consume ayahuasca here stateside under the Religious Freedom and Restoration Act. Again, we're going to have a bunch of videos on this stuff, so stay tuned. But anyways, he sent me those opinions. And at the time, I was doing very intense maritime litigation, experts and all this stuff. And y'all, when I read those opinions, it just all made total sense to me, and I knew it at that time. This is my higher path. That book was meant to lead me to this. That's what the entity was getting at. And when I came to that realization, it was almost like an intense mystical experience, just in and of itself, totally sober. And I find that happens more often now too, since working with entheogens, psychedelics, religiously, spiritually. And that was definitely one of them. And I realized, I was like, wow. But, then comes the next realization. It's like, okay, so how do I transition my life over to that? Which was a whole other set for a bunch of other videos. But I wanted to come give y'all that story there. I hope it's helpful. Again, I know a lot of people have either had these experiences, not advocating them. You do what you will. I'm not advocating them, but, I know a lot of people have had these experiences. I know a lot of people are very curious about these experiences. So on this channel, I will talk about mine very freely and openly because they've been just so meaningful, and I've just feel really called to share it with the world. But I hope y'all got something out of this. I'd love to know if y'all have had this experience. If you're curious, please come in the comments. Man, I love to talk to people in the comments. I love to hear about y'all's experiences. It helps me generate other content or ideas, things of that nature. And just, I love to meet people. I'm a people person. I never meet a stranger. So yeah, please do. I'd be honored. Thank y'all very much for watching this video. If you made it this far, man, thank y'all very much. At the end of the day, subscribe to the channel would be best. But if you have the capacity to man, that would be awesome too. I'd be very, very grateful. And I'm going to be here to stay. I'm going to be telling my experiences. We're going to be talking about psychedelic law, spirituality, religion. I'm an expert on these things. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about all that and more. So anyways, I love you. I hope you have a blessed day. God loves you. And we'll be coming back with more. Much love.